So my name is Fran Ives. I'm a Chartered Human Factors Specialist at Health and Innovation West Midlands and President-elect of the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors. Now my talk very nicely links in with Judith. It's almost like we work together, isn't it, Judith? What I want to do today is to really explore the critical role that human factors plays in facilities management and really think about how, as automation increases, we don't forget that human element. So we know that facilities management is evolving really quickly and technology is becoming a huge part of it. But we mustn't forget that great service still relies on having that human element. And as we look around today, I had a quick look upstairs, it's very evident that facilities management is going through a huge transformation. We have smart cleaning robots, we have automated portering systems, we have digital scheduling tools, and all of this technology is being integrated into so many parts of facilities management. Now, these innovations absolutely bring real benefits. They can bring greater efficiency, they can bring improved consistency, they can give us much better data for decision making. But while machines are really great at handling the routine tasks, they absolutely can't replace the human touch. So great service still depends on having people in the system. It's the cleaner who will notice that something's out of place. It's the porter who will give that reassuring word to the patient who's feeling anxious. It's the technician who uses their knowledge and their judgment to sort out and to solve that really complex and that knotty problem. So there are some things that automation just isn't able to solve. So as we embrace technologies, it's really important to make sure we're not sidelining those people who are actually going to make the services work. And as Judith very rightly said, the goal isn't to replace humans, it's really to support them and to try and enhance their roles as well, and to design systems that can best bring together both technology and people, which is exactly what human factors aims to do. So human factors is a scientific discipline which is all about designing systems that work well and best for people. So when we think about systems in human factors, we think about people being right at the very heart of those systems. And a human factors specialist will very much try to design the tasks that people are undertaking, the tools and technology, equipment that people are using, the environments in which they're working and the organisations in which they're operating to best support people, to best support system well-being and human performance. We know that people are really great at some things, but we know they're not so great at others, and we need to take that into consideration when we're designing. We've all experienced pieces of equipment that are really tricky to use, and the relief on Judith's face when she got up to this podium and saw a green button and a red button. Because how many people have stood up here and gone backwards throughout their slides rather than forwards? And I also breathed a sigh of relief and I thought, finally, here's one that somebody has designed with the user in mind. So we've all got experiences, examples of using equipment that just doesn't work and we get frustrated with. We've all had experiences of trying to navigate our way around buildings and the signage just isn't clear. We've all had experiences of working in environments or being in environments that are too hot, too cold, too cramped, too big, too noisy. And all those things really impact the way that we work. And if we think about the users and we try to design for them, that's how we can better support them and we enhance that human well-being and that system performance. So which is better then? Is it technology or is it humans? Or is there actually a place for them both to work together? So technology and humans both have unique strengths and they both bring those unique strengths to facilities management. Technology offers consistency, efficiency, but humans bring a lot of flexibility, judgment and empathy. So we really need to understand where each excels and try to understand how they can best complement each other. So really, it isn't about having technology or humans, it's about having both together. So let's take a moment to appreciate what technology can bring to the table. So in facilities management, automation can make tasks safer. They can reduce exposure to hazardous substances. They can reduce exposure to repetitive strain injuries and musculoskeletal problems. They can boost productivity by streamlining workflows or handling really routine tasks. And they can make services more inclusive. So, for example, if you've got remote monitoring or voice-activated systems, they can be really useful for people who have some kind of disability, which may prevent them from undertaking that work. But while these benefits are absolutely real, they don't cover everything. And there are some situations in which human strengths aren't just helpful, but they're absolutely essential. So what do humans bring? They bring judgment, so the ability to assess a situation and make really sound decisions based on context, based on their experiences, their knowledge and their nuances. They can offer really great situation awareness. So they can notice when something's not quite right, something's just a bit off, even if it's not part of a formal and rigid checklist. And they can bring a lot of adaptability that automation can't bring. So they can respond to challenges that perhaps were unexpected. They can adapt and adjust to changing environments, and they can show empathy to patients in moments where it really matters. So if you're thinking about cleaning, Judith and I are using a lot of cleaning examples here, but a robot may well follow a very set and programmed path. But a human might be able to spot a spillage that wasn't there 5 minutes ago, or they might be able to clean around a patient that's resting and shouldn't really be disturbed. And in portering, it's not just about moving things, it's about communicating. It's about offering those words of reassurance. It's about navigating some quite complex spaces, potentially. And in maintenance, humans bring their experiences to solve problems when systems aren't behaving quite as we expected. So technology is extremely powerful, but it works best when it's supporting people and not replacing them. So automation doesn't remove people, but it can change their roles, and often in ways that we wouldn't necessarily have predicted. And we really need to be mindful of these changes, the impact on staff, their skills and their responsibilities. And it's really important to keep people engaged and prepared for these shifts in their roles. As we've talked about, one of the misconceptions about automation is that it eliminates the need for people, but in reality, it rarely does that. But what it will do is it will shift the nature of people's roles, sometimes in very subtle ways, but sometimes also in quite large ways or ways that we wouldn't have anticipated. For example, when a task is automated, staff may no longer be involved in that real kind of hands-on element, but they might be still responsible for monitoring something, for troubleshooting, or making decisions and stepping in when something goes wrong. And this can actually lead to a bit of a shift and therefore confusion about who holds that authority, who holds the control, and who is ultimately accountable. So these changes can really impact how people feel about their work. If staff are no longer actively engaged in tasks that they once really enjoyed or they once really took pride in, it may lead them to feeling de-skilled or undervalued. And if they're not trained properly for their new responsibilities, it could lead to stress from staff, it could lead to errors, or it could potentially lead to risks in safety. So this is why it's so important to involve humans in any potential changes, involve them in the conversations about automation right from the very start. They are the people who have been doing the jobs. They know the messy realities of the work. They know the things that work, the things that don't work, the nuances, the challenges. But we also need to prepare them, not just with new tools and new technology, but with new ways of thinking about their roles. And we need to help them retrain their skills and retain the ones that really matter, to make sure that they're staying situationally aware and that they feel confident in what their place is within the broader automotive system. So ultimately, successful automation isn't just about the technology, it's about how well we support the people who work alongside it. So how do we do that? Now, in Human Factors, we're all about people. We're all about putting people at the centre. And one of the things that we often do is talk about co-designing with people. So involve frontline users in the design and the selection of automated tools. Make sure that their insights are actually considered and taken into account when we're designing new things. Involve them in usability testing. So before something is actually purchased and installed, get them to test the systems, get them to try and break it, get them to try and identify what's working, but also what isn't working. We can also think about cognitive load and situational awareness. So automation can reduce routine tasks, but what it can increase is that monitoring and decision making. So what we need to do is to make sure that what we're asking people to monitor, control panels, etc., have been designed really clearly, so it's very easy for people to extract information. Making sure that alerts that they have to respond to or dashboards that they're looking at are intuitive and they're not overwhelming and they're not presenting them with too much information. Making sure that we think about training and continuous learning, so not just that real technical training on how to use a piece of equipment, but thinking about more scenario-based training so that we can prepare them for situations when they go wrong, for failures. And really encourage that peer learning. So encourage people to talk to one another, share their experiences, but also share their workarounds. We're sometimes a bit negative about workarounds, but actually from a human factors perspective, I think it's also always a really good idea to positively explore workarounds because people have generally put them in place to try and make things work better. Rarely are they put in place to deliberately cut corners and for things to go wrong. Making sure that people have really clear expectations of their roles and accountability. So automation can sometimes blur those lines of responsibility. So making sure it's very, very clear who is accountable for what when systems fail. And make sure that you have very, very clear protocols for escalation and decision making in those situations. And really acknowledge to staff the impact that automation can have on how they see themselves and how they see their roles. Celebrate the new skills that they'll be learning. Celebrate the contributions that they can now give. It might look different, but it's still valid and valuable. And make sure that you create opportunities for people to really shape their future work and not just feel like they have to adapt to what is being imposed on them and what is coming in. And make sure, finally, that you treat automation as a bit of a living system. So it's not a case of just implementing automation and then off you go, that's it. Regularly get feedback from users who are still there. What's working? What isn't working? Think about it as being a bit of an iterative process. You might need to change processes and protocols as things develop, as things embed, or as things start to change and work better, or maybe don't work quite as well. But in order to get that information, it's so important to include staff in your post-implementation discussions and reviews and take time to have those because they are the people that hold those golden nuggets that are going to help you in the future. So hopefully you've had a little bit of information as to how important humans still are in our systems and how we need to really include them in the processes right from the very beginning when we're thinking about automation. Don't think of automation as replacing humans, thinking about the two working alongside and making sure that narrative and that conversation with the people in your system continues from start all the way through and continues so that hopefully what you're ending up with and what you're designing is a system that supports the well-being of everything in that system, very much including the people. So thank you.